Loving Eliza by Ruth Nordin, Chapter 3. Eliza couldn't remember the last time she slept straight through the night. Then again, her job had required her to stay up late. For once, she felt like a lady. A single lady that had her own bed. A single lady also had respect, and she wanted to be respected. It was a good thing people in town knew John was the kind of man who wouldn't take advantage of her, because his home was much further out of the way than she thought it'd be when she agreed to work for him. He did provide her with a nice little building to the side of his 3-room house. Her small home was 1 room, but it was all she needed. He took an old twin-sized bed that she guessed used to be his and carried it to the little cabin. Apparently, he used the place to polish the furniture he made, for rows and rows of paints, brushes, and carving knives decorated the shelves. 4 table legs rested on a large work table. He had been shaving into the wooden legs, and she stopped for a moment to admire the intricate ovals and ribbons he had already carved into them. He was a man who took great care into the smallest detail of his work. She admired that about him. He had dragged out a large trunk for her to put her things in, and her light blue dress, her undergarments, and extra pair of shoes made her realize how little she actually owned. Besides a brush, a mirror, a few books, and a picture of her son, whom she had given up for adoption, she had nothing else. Well, there was the rest of her cash, but that was only enough to last for 2 weeks. She had tucked the cash and picture under her clothes, but she placed her books on the small table by the bed. John had also brought out a rocking chair to put by one of the 2 windows. Then he added another small table, a pitcher of water, a cup, and a wash basin. She brushed her hair and braided it again. One of these days, she was going to have to bathe. She had spent most of her life around perfume, and without it now, she became aware of how bad the human body could smell when one went without bathing for a month. She poured some water in the basin and washed her face, realizing too late that she had no towel. She waved the water off her hands while she glanced out the window. The sun had already risen, and John was leaving his house. She couldn't help but smile. He was sweet. If she had to guess his age, she'd say that he was in his mid-20s. Of course, some people looked older or younger than they actually were. She opened the door before he had a chance to knock. "I saw you coming, so I decided to save you the trouble." He smiled at her. "I slept well," she told him, assuming that's what he would be wondering. "The bed is more comfortable than any I'd ever been in," partly because it was hers and no one else's, but she would not tell him that. There was no reason for her to ever tell him about her past. He nodded and motioned to his house. "Breakfast?" she guessed. He nodded. "I can make eggs and fry up anything you got. I can eat just about anything, too. I'm not picky," she assured him. When he pointed back to her new home, she tried to decipher what he wanted, but his meaning eluded her. "I don't understand," she said. He stepped forward, causing her to take a step back. The first thought that flashed through her mind as he entered her place was that she might have been wrong about him. Perhaps he did expect payment in some form, like the other men had. Stunned, she watched him. No, she wouldn't do it again. She would rather hightail it right back to town. She hadn't come all this way to return to a life of prostitution. But instead of walking to her bed, he collected his saws and hammers and left her place. She immediately released her breath, grateful that she'd been wrong. He was clearing out the rest of his things. She waited to see what he did with them before she gathered a couple of containers of paint and took them to the shed. "Since I'm kicking you out of your workshop, I might as well help," she explained when she saw his puzzled expression as he set the saws and hammers on some nails lining the walls. He shook his head and motioned to his home. "Oh, you want me to cook while you transfer your things over here?" Smiling, he nodded. "Well, why didn't you just say so?" she joked. Handing him the paint, she added, "I'll get right on it, boss." He raised an eyebrow at her. "Yes, I called you boss." He shook his head. "Well, that is what you are." To her surprise, he motioned to his ring finger. Setting her hands on her hips, she sighed. You're not one to give up, are you? Already, I said I'm not going to marry you, and there's nothing that's going to change my mind on that. Now, you get yourself prepared for that bride of yours. She's happy to be coming out to meet you. I read her letter, so I know this to be true." Before he could make another protest, she slipped out of the shed. The length of the house from her new little home and the shed was pretty much the same. It took her a total of half a minute to get to the house. She opened the screen door and stepped into the kitchen. Curious, she decided to check out the entire place. There was a parlor and a bedroom. It wasn't anything fancy. For a bachelor, she did not expect fancy, but she had to admit his large bed, dresser with a large mirror above it, the 3 rocking chairs in the parlor, and chairs around the small kitchen table were made with the same love and care he had shown those table legs. She thought lacy curtains and a nice tablecloth would pretty things up a bit. Flowers in a vase would brighten all the rooms. She peeked out the parlor window and noted the wildflowers that grew along the property. Good. She promptly returned to the kitchen and found some well-used containers that would serve nicely as vases. At least they would do, until she could go to town and buy some. If she got paid. Maybe she wouldn't get paid. Food and lodging might be her wages. She shrugged. No matter. She could spare a coin from her money. She set to the task of making the meal, grateful that Peter Preter's wife had taken the time to instruct her in cooking. Otherwise, she would have been at a complete loss in the kitchen. When John entered the kitchen, she showed him the plates full of pancakes and eggs. "Ta-da! I did it all by myself." He seemed amused by her comment. "If you knew how much trouble I went through to learn this," she began, "you would be suitably impressed. Now, sit down. This stuff gets cold fast." Like a little boy about to receive candy, he hurried to obey her. She laughed. "I think we'll get along just fine." He must have sensed her humor, for he playfully shrugged. She placed food on the table and said grace before they began eating. "Do you make a lot of furniture for people in town?" He glanced up from his fork full of eggs and nodded. "Frank from the general store said that you also repair things," she said. Chewing on his food, he motioned his agreement. She cut into her pancake and asked, "Do you repair things more than you make furniture?" He stopped eating for a moment and glanced at the ceiling, as if thinking over his answer. Finally, he nodded. "You must be a lot of use to people in town. You do excellent work. I sell those table legs and the furniture you have here. You also have a nice house and solid buildings. I bet you have people beating down your door just to talk to you." He grinned, but shook his head. She didn't know if that meant he found her comment pleasing, or if he was telling her that people were not banging down his door to talk to him. Someone knocked on the door. Her eyebrows rose. "Well, you must be popular after all." That only confirmed her suspicions. After all, in the short time she'd been in town, 2 people had sung his praises. Well, there was that rude group of 3 men, but she was sure they were the exception rather than the rule. He scooted his chair back, but she stopped him with a wave of her hand. "I'll get it. I like to get to know some of the people who come to visit." She smiled and opened the screen door. "Good morning." 4 men who bore a strong resemblance to John stood by the door. "Let me guess," she said. "Brothers or cousins?" The tallest one laughed. "We're John's brothers." "All 4 of you?" She glanced back at John, who slowly stood. He didn't seem as happy as she thought he should be. She wondered about it, but decided that she would ask him later. "You got any sisters among you?" "No, ma'am," the man said. "We're all there is." 5 boys, she mused. "I bet you gave your mother a hard time. Do you want to come in?" She moved aside and waved them in. As they came in, she mentally noted each one. 2 seemed to be older than John, and the other 2 seemed to be younger, but they all had brown hair and similar builds. The way they dressed and their facial hair helped to distinguish them from each other. John was the only one who was fully clean-shaven, and she thought his eyes were a little more appealing than the others. That helped too. They stood in the kitchen, and she suddenly realized how small the space really was. "Maybe we should go to the parlor," she suggested. "There's more room in there." "Oh, we didn't realize you 2 were eating," one of them said. She noted that John had finished his meal. He also stood by the table, lightly drumming his fingers on it. She couldn't tell what the expression on his face meant, but figured that he'd like to talk to his brothers. They were family, after all. She cleared her throat. You five go on to the parlor, and I'll be right along after I get done with this mess. You will be joining us, won't you? Another brother asked. Sure, I'd like to meet John's kin. But you five should catch up on whatever it is brothers talk about when they get together first. She shooed them for the parlor. Don't mind me, I won't get in the way of men's talk. Well, don't take too long, one of John's brothers said. She wondered why they should care if she joined them or not. But she shrugged off the question and turned her attention to finishing up her breakfast and then cleaning up. Most of the talk seemed to revolve around the townsfolk. Since she didn't know many names, most of it didn't make much sense to her. But she did find it amusing that they found a way to gossip. In fact, they were just as bad as some women that she'd met. That proved that both men and women liked to engage in this activity. When she completed her task, she entered the parlor. They all stopped to look at her. 3 men were sitting in rocking chairs, while John and another man stood. John hurried over to her so he could stand right next to her. I'm sure he wants to introduce me, she said. My name is Eliza. I arrived on the stagecoach yesterday, looking for work, and Melissa Peters. Melissa Peters is pushing up daisies at the cemetery, the one sitting in a chair with his arms crossed stated. Well, I know that now, she said. I didn't know it then. Anyway, I had nowhere to go, so John offered me a job. I assure you that we are not behaving indecently. I'm staying out at that building over there. She pointed in the direction of her new little cabin. Oh, we have no doubt that this arrangement is platonic, another replied. She smiled, relieved. Well, that's good. I don't want anyone to misunderstand the situation. I know that John's mail-order bride will be coming in any day now. What will you do when she does? A man asked. She glanced at John. His jaw was clenched and his body was stiff. Did she say something wrong? Maybe she shouldn't have been so bold in jumping in and introducing herself like she had. Directing her attention back to his brothers, she shrugged. I guess we'll see when she gets here. She may not like having another woman hanging around on her property. If she and John wish me to leave at that time, I will. We're sure we can find employment for you if that happens, the one who was standing across the room said. The others indicated their agreement. Well, that's awfully nice of you, she said, touched that they even cared about her fate. She looked at John. You have some great brothers here. I bet you're all great friends. John didn't look in her direction. We all look out for each other, one of the brothers said, directing her attention back to him. Especially after Mom and Pa died, another added. I'm sorry to hear that, she replied. I lost my parents when I was 14. Not wishing to explain what she did after that, she continued, I don't have any siblings, so it's good that you have each other. You look close in age, too. Who is who, and how old is everyone? The one sitting back in his chair spoke up. I'm Aaron, 31 and the oldest. She nodded. The one with the mustache with the long handles is Aaron. He's Guy. Aaron pointed to the brother with the bushy beard. He's 29. Then he motioned to the one who was standing, who had a neatly trimmed beard. That there is Troy. He's 28. Your poor mother. She didn't even get a break between you two, she joked. They chuckled. Well, everyone did but John. John just tensed up even more. Something she didn't think possible. Then there's John, Aaron continued. He's 25. Actually, he just turned 25 a week ago. She jabbed John in the arm, hoping to ease his tension. I should make you a cake. His eyes met hers, and there was no denying that he was not pleased with what was happening. Aaron leaned forward and motioned to the youngest brother, who had a trim mustache. That's Sean. He'll be 18 in 2 months. So you're the one that decided you'd give your mother a break, she said. Good for you. Yeah, good for him. Guy shot John an amused look. Something wasn't quite right. John was much too stiff, and his brothers were much too relaxed. One thing she learned long ago was that family dealings weren't any of her business. As it was, she already put her nose in where it didn't belong. Now it's time to leave the brothers to themselves. Well, I thank you all for coming and making me feel welcome, she said, ready to bolt for the door. I'll see you again when you stop by." Next time, she decided that she would not make a nuisance of herself. "You don't have to leave," the one named Troy spoke up. She shifted from one foot to the other. "I think I'd better. I have some personal business to attend to." There. No man wanted to insist a woman stick around when she had personal business to do. "It was nice meeting you, Eliza," Aaron called out. The others voiced their agreement. She didn't even bother looking in John's direction as she thanked them and left. She breathed a sigh of relief as soon as the door swung shut behind her as she made her way across the grass to her new home. She'd wait until they left before she asked John what else he wanted her to do to earn her keep. For the moment, she was not needed, and whatever was going on with all of them in there, she was glad to be out of it.